Most of the best online education businesses that I know were not overnight success stories. They were not built in 12 months. They were built over many, many years of persistence and commitment. But at the heart of building a really great education business is deeply understanding your audience, and more importantly, deeply understanding your customer. Because when you really understand the customer, the things they like, the things they don't like, the things that they respond to, the things that they rail against, that's when you can build something that they fall in love with, which creates loyal customers and then reputation, and round and round and round it goes. But how do you get that data? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you a very, very simple but powerful way to collect the most important data that you need for your business so that you can grow it and thrive into the long term. In case you don't know me, my name is Olly Richards. I'm the founder of StoryLearning.com. It's a multi-million-dollar online education business. I'm also a mentor and advisor to other online education entrepreneurs. I actually sent out this idea to people recently, and I got a real flurry of responses back saying, yeah, I know about this. I really should do it. I've never got around to it. Judging by the number of replies I got, this is something which, it's not rocket science, but if you actually do it, it allows you to get the kind of data that can really transform your business. So let's look at it. If we start by asking, what are the things that we would actually really like to know about our customers? If we knew them, would allow us to really improve the business across the board. Well, we want to know what our customers struggle with, obviously. A lot of us kind of know that, I think, from the basic work that we do. We want to know what their goals are, their aspirations. We want to know who they are, both in terms of demographics, but also what magazines they like to read. Who are they? Who are they? What makes these people unique? They're not just data. They're real people. So who are they really? So that we can tailor our marketing and the way we talk to them. We want to know what they experience inside our ecosystem. So if they buy one of our products, what do they actually think about it? How many people really get that kind of feedback? We want to know how they experience the process of buying from you and working with you. Is there something really confusing on your checkout page? And spoiler alert, there almost certainly is. Checkout pages are full of confusion. So was there something that almost stopped people buying? What's inside their head as they're trying to buy from you? And things like, how did they find you in the first place? What was it that they were doing that led them to discover you? These are the kind of bits of information that if you can collect regularly, tell you everything you need to know about your customers. And then when you get this information, you can then use this to both improve products yourself and formulate your own marketing strategy. But if you start to work with outside consultants or agencies or whoever, whether it's a marketing consultant or maybe you bring on a copywriter, guess what? They want to know these things as well. The first thing that a copywriter or a consultant is going to ask you is, well, who are your people? What are their problems? What do they actually think currently about what you do? So collecting this data overall is hugely powerful. But the way that most people approach this is they do, kind of like a 5-year census. It's like every few years you send out kind of big, massive survey and try to gather all this data. But guess what? Most people don't like filling in huge, massive surveys. And sure, you can incentivize them, but then you're only kind of getting the responses from people who are easily incentivized. So it's not great. The principle to follow, we want to be collecting this data on a regular basis at all the really high touch points throughout your funnel, because people are motivated to give you feedback at specific points. And so if we can actually appear and solicit that feedback at specific points, we're more likely to get it. And by automating it, we can just make sure that it can be like a flywheel that's running in the background. And this data over the course of time, over a period of years, really builds up to something massive. How do we do this? First of all, we want to keep it really simple. And the thing I'm going to show you here, you can implement in less than an hour, probably 30 minutes actually. You can set it up in less than an hour, and it's going to just collect years worth of absolute golden data for you. So the way that I tend to collect this data is with simple Google Forms. Like, don't overcomplicate it. I'll often include a link in an email or something and say, hey, just click this thing here. It only takes 60 seconds. So it's very, very simple Google form. And we're asking questions like, how did you first hear about us? What does it mean to you to learn the guitar or whatever? How will your life be different? Trying to understand their goals. What one thing could I improve about the course? Like, I just put together this random example, but the purpose is to show you how simple it is. There are 3 questions here. You might only have 1 question or 2 questions. It kind of depends where you're putting it. But this is how I like to gather data. It populates in your Google Forms, and you can very easily analyze it. You don't need to pay all these for these expensive type forms and things like that. Just do it in a really simple way here. Now, how do we collect this data exactly? Well, let's just imagine we're starting off with someone who's going to come and buy from you. So someone buys from you and they are now a customer. Collecting data from a customer is infinitely more valuable than just surveying your general audience. If you're on YouTube, you might find that if you survey your entire audience, they want this one thing over here. But when you survey your buyers, you find they want this other thing over here. So we always want to be collecting data from buyers separately, and because that's what's going to give us the most useful information. So someone buys, and then immediately on the thank you page, once they've finished the checkout process, this is where they are most excited. They've got the dopamine hit of just having bought. They're ready to study. So right here, we can put a survey right there. Hey, what was the reason that you bought from us today? Where did you hear about us in the first place? What are your goals? Something really simple. You get a very high completion rate by putting the survey right here. Similarly, you might have an application process instead of, if you're selling high ticket, you might have an application process. One of the things that I always ask for applications to work with me is, I always ask, where did you find out about me? And this is absolute golden data, because I see that people who apply to work with me tend to come from very specific places, including this YouTube channel, by the way. And so right there in the application, this is the part where someone is most engaged and invested in the process, right? Because they've decided to apply to work with you. So include in there whatever data is most meaningful for you, whether that's demographic stuff or whether that's where they found you in the first place. The principle we want to follow is we have their full attention at this point, so let's get the data whilst we can. So they've bought from you and they are now on an email sequence of some kind, maybe a consumption sequence, something that's designed to get them to consume the product that they've just bought. Your first few emails that get sent out, especially that first email, is going to have the highest open rate of any email you ever send. And so right there in this very first email, guess what we can do? We can repeat the survey question from the thank you page, because most people still are not going to do it. And so this gives you a second crack at the whip where they are most engaged. Say, hey, here are your login details. But by the way, it's really important for me to find out a couple of things about you. Please click here to answer these questions. It's automated, it goes out to everyone, it's going to start gathering that data for you. Email you're going to start sending into the course. So now they're studying in your course, and then maybe they get to the end of the course or the program, or if you're running cohorts, maybe it's the final lesson in a cohort, whatever it may be. When they get to the end and they've completed it, guess what they feel? They feel super excited. They feel really this sense of accomplishment. And what are they motivated to do at that point? Complete your survey. What was your experience like? What's one thing we could do differently? Right there is a great time to ask for feedback. Similarly, once they've been studying on the course for a while, you're hopefully going to be following up by email. And if you're not, fix that. 2-3 weeks after they sign up for the course, presumably they have started to consume the course. If you can trigger these emails within your course platform, even better. So like when someone gets to the halfway point, perhaps if you somehow have a way to trigger an email that goes out when someone reaches the halfway point or the quarter way point, perhaps send them an email and say, hey, what's your experience like? What's one thing we could do better? Would you recommend this course to others? You could then, in this email, include one of my favorite tricks is to make a request for a testimonial in an email that goes out a few weeks later. Obviously, you can do that on the completion page as well. But we want to ask these questions. Now, what was good? What was bad? What could we do more of? What would you change? What questions do you still have? What struggles do you still have, and what do you want to learn next? Because that tells you, okay, well, next, we can make a different course. It's super simple, and this whole structure, if you put it in place, it's completely automated. Everything you see here is automated, and over a period of years builds up to form an incredibly powerful picture of who your customers are. And you are going to learn things that you had no idea about, and it's going to form the future of your business. So if you don't have this in place, if you're not collecting this kind of data on autopilot, then I really recommend that you set aside an hour at some point next week just to get it done, because it's one of those things that you're going to put off, and you put off once it's in place, then it just becomes incredibly powerful over time. If you like stuff like this, you might like my case study where I've written exhaustive detail all about how my business Story Learning runs. There's a link in the description where you can download it. It's completely free. It's about 118 pages or so. People really seem to like that. And if you'd like more inspiration about how you can build a successful online education business, then in this video over here, I show you how I built a very successful business working only 1 day a week. There are some tips in there which I think really everybody should know.